All right, we got to get this married couple a little something to eat. Let me tell you about that food court and tower a little bit. Uh, the tower itself had there was a little like a one person, maybe two person, real small elevator right in the middle where the water tower had been to go up, and also there were four. I think there were four. Yeah, I think they'd planned four dumb waiters, if you know what they are. So actually, waitresses up on the platform, they could serve customers up there. But most people got their food down below and then walked up the steps. Now there were two. They spiraled up, and there were two of them, so that you actually had two ways to get down. Well, three if you count the elevator. Three ways to get down off the tower, if you had to. And the food court itself was to the side. It wasn't underneath the tower. That now, you might think about the weight up there, but that tower, the water tower, had been twice that high, and it had a tank up there that held thousands of gallons of water. So there was no problem with the strength of the thing. But it was a little narrow, and they had put struts out to widen it. It was really quite a structure. Now, if it rained or something like that, people just didn't use it, or they could put a tent up quick. But that would have spoiled it because the thing was up there. I'll tell you about the view in a little. Well, anyway, the food court down below, it was an experiment, and it had really been unthinkable in the past that people would serve food at a place like that, because it's high time I explained to you that Earth's Drink had a dark, a cloaked history. For over 100 years, there had been a tannery down there in the bottom of that valley, down there below the four-star hotel, down in there, at the bottom of where the water wheel. Now, the water wheel was something new, but there had been a tannery that used all this water, and the smell that came off that tannery, it was a big industry. They did the best they could, but tanneries don't smell good, and so the whole town it's kind of tragic to hear about this in a way. It's heroic. The whole town, pretty much all the time, depending on the wind to some extent, and had a smell that I used the word pall. I think it like laid a pall over the town, and all the visual beauty and the human beauty of that town was handicapped in a sense by that. When people talked about Earth's Drink, strangers or didn't know much, they wouldn't talk much about that unbelievable spring of water. They would say, "Oh yeah, that smell," and now residents of Earth's Drink, they had a reply to that, which was standard. They'd almost say it immediately. They would say it smells like money to them, because that tannery, together with with the leather works, that had been the industrial life of that town, and it had been prosperous, which helps to explain those houses, which I'll tell you about later, those churches. So anyway, so it was amazing. See, about at that point, it was probably about 10 years earlier. The tannery had closed, and it looked like the death of the town. But the result, though, was that the smell went away gradually, and eventually, see, the workers, they tried to take it over and keep running it, but it wasn't economic anymore because of international trade and stuff. It just wasn't economic. And when it closed, it was basically derelict. And then eventually several owners tried to clean it up to see what they could get. I guess I'll just tell you about this now and what their meal later. If they could, what they could salvage from the equipment and all that stuff. And it went through several owners. And finally, there was one who managed to do it. And he had managed to clean that whole area up, 350 acres. Now the tannery itself was much smaller, but it was right down in there. And at first the town didn't know what to do about it, but ultimately they began to regard him as a saint, that he could have done that for that town, to get rid of all that wreckage and that vast derelict mess that was left there. They joked about him. They called him St. Jaffrey's, and he done it. And then he had sold at a considerable profit. I mean, he made a lot of money in doing this, but he sold it to these entrepreneurs. Well, that's not actually quite right. Later on, I'll tell you who he sold it to. There were entrepreneurs coming forward offering bids on that because they saw the beauty of that site and the beauty of that town, and they realized that this was going to be what I'm describing, because eventually that was done. Now see, I'm going back into history some, but it was complete by now, and it would be a fine place to eat. You wouldn't have to be smelling a tannery while you were eating. Well, I'll go on and tell you about their meal next time. I kind of got stuck on that subject. Bye for now.